Hello, welcome to Look Into the Glass. Today we have a very special episode for you. We have me, of course, like always. We have Pete with Pete versus Anxiety, and we have Susan Snow today. Thank you, Susan, for coming on our show and giving us this opportunity. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, short end is I am a speaker, I am an author, I'm a coach, trauma resiliency coach. I'm a realtor. I have been with my husband for 40 years, which is crazy to say.
That's a long
And I
time.
have three grown children, won't discuss their ages.
All right, all right. So your book, can you tell us a little bit of what your book is about?
Sure. My book was born out of wanting to help others through healing of trauma and living with PTSD. My book is about my journey that started at 17 years old.
Okay.
And so it gives the story behind my trauma. And the book is in two parts. The first part is all the trauma I went through, the second part is how I got through it.
Fantastic. Wow. Yeah, that's great. Um,
Do you want to know my story?
yes, thank you.
I
Thank
was waiting
you.
for you to lead the way. I'm just sitting here waiting for you to lead the way. Like, all right, you got this. I'm letting you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I apologize. I'm nervous and everything too.
No,
Um,
it's totally fine.
yeah, tell us a little bit about your background. Do you mind going into the kind of traumas that you experienced and
Sure.
give us a little bit on that so that our listeners can understand where you're coming from?
Okay. I'll take, strap yourself in.
Yeah, it gets
Pete
intense. I'm
knows.
telling you. Oh yeah, I've been in for this one. It's a rough story, so I hope you're ready.
Okay. Well, I grew up a cop's daughter. Um, and my dad was an LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department detective. He was a robbery homicide detective. And I had a pretty normal teenage life. Everything revolved around me as a teenager. And I had a 6-year-old brother at the time as well. Um, and on Halloween of 1985, that morning, he was getting ready to testify in a court case that he was a lead detective on. And I wanted to go to a party that night. So I asked him, he said no. And so obviously, I went to school very frustrated. But the plan was that my dad was going to leave court and that he would go to my brother's school. And my brother went to a church school, so he had an after school care program. And so my dad would leave, go pick him up there, and then come home. And by that time, my mom would be home, and then I could just schmooze them into allowing me to go to this party. Um, so I was home. My mom came home, and the phone rang. And being a teenager, I thought it was for me. So I ran to go pick up the phone, and it wasn't for me. It was a lady from my brother's school. And all she said was that there was a drive-by shooting and my dad was involved. So my mom had come around the corner. I handed her the phone the fastest I could. And I tried to listen in, but I couldn't hear anything. And so I just watched her body language. And that's all I needed to know. I knew it was not good. She got off the phone and she said, "We're going to the school." And I said, "Okay." And we got in the car. It was about a 7-minute drive to the school. It was nighttime by now. It was after 5. And the way that the school was set up, the kids got out on the back side of the school from the after school care. So when we parked in the middle of the school parking lot, we just headed towards the back of the school. And even though it was dark, there was just, it looked like daylight I mean, as we were walking there, it just literally looked like the whole night sky was lit up by all the police cars. And there was an ambulance as well. As we were walking, my mom and I kind of glanced over and noticed my dad's truck. So we started to run towards the truck. The closer we got to the truck, we saw glass all around the truck. And then we rounded the corner, and there he was, partially covered up. At that point, my mom dropped to her knees and started to scream. And I just stood there in the street, not being able to comprehend what I was looking at. So I just hyper focused on the ambulance that was in the street. And my mind just kept going over and over, like, where is everyone? Why aren't they helping him? And two officers came up pretty quickly and grabbed us by our arms and escorted us back into the school. We went into the school office. I sat down, and my mom got taken aside by some detectives. At this point, I didn't even know where my brother was. I didn't know he was hurt. I didn't know if he was at a hospital. I had no information whatsoever. And I was still trying to process everything. As I sat there, there were two ladies in the office that worked at the school, and the one lady said to the other that my dad was deceased. That's when my world cracked.
Yeah.
And
God, that story doesn't get any easier here every
Yeah.
time.
I had to grab a tissue.
I,
Wow.
yeah, as a kid, I
How
just
old were you?
wanted to run away. I wanted to jump up out of that chair and run out of that room and as far as I could. But at the time, my body just felt like it was filled with cement. I couldn't move. And my mom came up to me a little bit later and she said, "I'm sending you with a neighbor." And I know that I wanted to run out of there, but I was still a kid at the time. And so I just wanted to be with my family. I wanted to be with my brother and my mother, and I needed that comfort, and I needed to have that security. And unfortunately, I didn't get that. And I did go with a neighbor, and she had known me since I was little. Her daughter and I were friends when we were small, and or younger, I should say. And she was trying to process everything herself. My neighborhood went from being very quiet to completely filled with law enforcement. Um, there were helicopters, police cars everywhere. Um, it was a huge story when it happened, so we had the media as well. And all she could do was rush me into her house as fast as she could. And at the time, I was dating this boy that was 19, and I had only been dating him 3 months. But at that point, all I wanted was him. And so I had her call him. And she called him, and unfortunately, she didn't give him a lot of information. So when he showed up, he was like, grab your purse, your jacket, what hospital is he at? Where's your mom? Where's your brother? All of the normal questions. And I just couldn't spit out the words. I couldn't say it. But the more persistent he got about us leaving, I finally blurted it out. He's gone. And he said, "What do you mean he's gone?" And I said, "He's gone. He's not at a hospital." And I watched him collapse and start sobbing. And both of us were just trying to grasp everything that was going on, because it was just such a surreal feeling. I literally felt like there was part of me that was just out of body. It was just like an out of body experience. And we weren't at the neighbors very long. I made the decision to go home. Nobody called on me or anything. So I made the decision to go home. And as I was walking towards my house, the police officers were coming up to me and asking me who I was. And I just said, I'm the daughter. And their faces turned totally pale white. And they were like, go in the house. Um, and my house was filled with strangers I had never seen before. And so I did what a kid does. I ran to my room with my boyfriend and I hid. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to ask any questions or be asked any questions. Like, I just was trying to process everything the best I could. And unfortunately, back then, there were no resources um, for kids of fallen officers. They had systems in place for the wives and the widows and the widowers, but they didn't have anything for the kids. And it was the mid 80s. So there really wasn't any talk about mental health back then. That wasn't something we discussed.
No, it wasn't.
Um, so I didn't understand the ramifications at all of what was happening. Um, and there wasn't even a whole lot known about PTSD back then either. It was called shell shock, and it was
Hmm.
only attributed to people coming back from war.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep, for sure.
so I mean, after that night, and I finally I stayed in my room. My boyfriend left, and I stayed in my room all night until the daylight. I could hear my brother crying through the night, so I knew he was home, and I knew that he wasn't physically harmed. But I did find out that the last act my dad did here on earth was to save his son and tell him to duck down in the truck because he knew what was happening. Um, and I saw my brother around 11 a.m. I was able to hug him and tell him I loved him and that we were going to get through this. Um, but unbeknownst to us, we too were targets. And so we had that police presence for 6 days until they finally caught the men that were involved. It was a planned out assassination of my father in retaliation for his testimony. And so not only did we have the police presence, but I went from having a normal teenage life to having this police presence and bodyguards no matter where I went for 6 days. So that in itself was surreal. And
Yeah.
um, I just, I kept thinking to myself, this can't be my life. Like, what happened? And I struggled because my relationship with my mom prior to my dad's death was a little turbulent. And my dad was a very present person. He was my protector. He was my voice of reason, and now he's gone. And I didn't know how I was going to navigate my relationship with my mom and all the other stuff that I was dealing with. Um, and so that was, when I really look at it, it was trauma on top of trauma
Yeah,
at that point.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
That never gets easier hearing that story.
Wow. The entire
God.
time I'm like, the brother, the brother, the brother. I'm glad to know that he's okay, but I mean, the ramifications on him too. Like,
Yes.
wow. Wow.
Yeah. My brother, he's doing good now, but he really got lost in this. He got lost. And as a young man, not having his dad around, he dealt with a lot of survivor's guilt. Um, but it's for me, it was just trying to navigate all of the mental health things that come with PTSD Um, I really didn't understand what was happening to me. I literally felt like I was going crazy, like I was completely out of control. But I didn't have anything in me to advocate for myself, um, because I was still a kid. And I just felt like if I said the things, I had suicidal ideation. I wanted to be with my dad no matter what. I couldn't pull my head off the pillow on days. I didn't want to take a shower. I mean, there were just things where I just felt like the weight of the world was hammering me. And then on top of that, not having him as my safety net, I was having panic attacks. Even though we were surrounded by police officers, I still felt completely unsafe.
Yeah,
And
absolutely
I,
you would.
I didn't understand what a panic attack was. I felt like, oh, I'm going to die. Like something's going to happen to me. Um, but I was okay with that because if that would mean that I go with my dad. So it was just this very uh, toxic stuff that was going on inside of me. And um, I was living kind of in a fog. And so I wasn't sleeping at night. You know, you just push me in a direction, and that's the direction I would go. So, about a month after my dad was killed, my mom came to me and she said that LAPD was going to pay for therapy for all three of us separately. And I didn't know what therapy was. I mean, I thought if you went to a doctor like that, you must be nuts.
Yeah, back then it was a shrink. It wasn't therapy. It
You
Mm-hmm.
was
went
you
to
were
a
going to a
shrink. You
shrink.
you were nuts. Like that was my
Yeah.
kid brain, and um but my mom voluntold me that I was going to therapy. So I went and I thought, okay, maybe this is the adult that's going to help me feel better. So I'll do this. And I went and saw this gentleman, and in hindsight, uh he was not uh trauma informed, nor was he trauma competent.
Which
And
I've heard a lot of people run into that, especially back in the
back then,
80s,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that trauma counselors were no such thing. Like it
Yeah.
was very, very
He,
few and far
he
between.
definitely did not want to dip his toes in the weeds with me. In fact, he didn't even ask me any questions about how I felt that night and what I saw in any of that. Like, I feel like he was afraid to, because then we would go down a road that he was
He
not.
didn't know how to handle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And, so all of our sessions were just about my relationship with my mom, my relationship with my brother, my boyfriend in school, since I was a senior in high school at the time. So every week I kept thinking, today's the day. He's going to say something, he's going to do something, he's something to make me feel better. And it didn't happen. And I saw him for a year. And after the year, he said, Susan, you're a well rounded young lady and you're going to be fine for the rest of your life. And I don't need to see you anymore. So I walked out of his office thinking, okay, I've snapped. I'm nuts. I'm just going to be like this for the rest of my life, and not even a professional can help me. I'm going to have to figure this out myself. And so I did what I thought was the best thing for me at the time. I created an emotional mask, and that mask was based on what people told me I was. So if people said, Susan, you're so brave, Susan, you're so strong, that's what I hid behind. The inside of me, I was a mess. I had all the things going on, but there is no way in hell that other people were going to see this. So I masked, and it wasn't healthy. um,
No.
but at the same time, like, I watched my mom, and there's no judgment in this whatsoever because everybody deals with trauma differently and grief differently. And so my mom's coping skill was using alcohol.
Which
And
that's a lot of people's coping skills. That
yeah,
that
and
absolutely.
it
My I
exacerbated.
I turned to drugs for my coping skills,
Yeah.
so
And
it's
there's no
very common.
judgment in that. There
Yeah,
just isn't. But
yeah.
it's the it's what it did to me, and it exacerbated the abuse,
Hmm.
for both my brother and myself. And so I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go down that road, but masking wasn't healthy either. But it was the only thing that I felt like I could do at the time so that I didn't I didn't portray myself as myself.
As
Like,
a nutcase is how you felt on the inside,
right.
completely unhinged.
I thought
Yeah,
someone would throw me in a loony bin and call it a day. Like there was just, no way that I was going to allow people to see me like that. But in doing that, I also um I was not able to really take a look at relationships around me, and understand that if something was unhealthy or not for me. So I was a big people pleaser, and I would manipulate myself and to mold myself into what other people needed me to be. The other girls in high school, like what I needed to be for them,
and
um,
not for you.
and not for me. Like
Yeah.
not for me ever, like ever. Um, there was a lot of expectation, and even I married the boyfriend. Um, we're still together 40 years later.
I was
Just
hoping you were gonna say that. I was
yeah,
hoping that that was the same. I was like, oh,
yeah.
that's good.
We've been through hell.
Yeah, that's
Um,
an understatement.
yep,
Yeah.
we have been through hell and back together. And when I got to be about, living in fight, flight, or freeze or fawn, I also had, I got to a point after I'd had kids. I had two kids with him, and I thought, I need to leave. I need to leave California, and I need to put that as leave it in California and go to another state and start over and start anew and just leave all of that behind, and it's not going to follow me, ha ha ha, and just start over. And so we did. We in 97 we left Southern California and we moved to Colorado. And at the time I was working as a hairdresser. I was master stylist at the time, and I worked at a salon that was very close to Littleton, Colorado. And I worked on April 20th of 1999. I was in the salon. I finished a client, put her under the dryer, went into the back to take a quick break. And I turned on the TV back there, and up popped the live coverage of the Columbine shootings. And I had a visceral reaction. I had flashbacks of the night my dad was killed.
Yeah.
I saw everything that I saw that night, the ambulances, the police cars, the kids my own age, like everything. And my colleague was right there, and she's looking at me, and I'm turning pale and starting to sweat. I know I'm going into a panic attack. And she's confused because I never told her my story. So she has no idea what's going on. And guess what? Either did I. Because I was told I was going to be fine for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you were already told that you were healed.
So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what was happening to me. But I did know that I started to feel that feeling of being out of control again. And I thought, oh, no, 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 not going down that road. So I put that mask back on. And I went out and I finished my day stoic, kept telling myself, this has nothing to do with me. I don't have kids there. I'm going to feel better tomorrow. All the lies that you tell yourself. And I left. I finished my day. I left. I got in my car. I started to drive home, and everything flooded back. Everything. And this time it was worse. Um, I stopped sleeping immediately, and I went into the deep depression again. I felt very suicidal now because there was part of me that was just like, I'm done. I don't want to feel this way anymore.
Yeah,
But
you've already fought it off once. You've already fixed
yeah,
yourself once. Now I got to
yeah,
fix myself again.
yeah, exactly. And, I had that feeling, but at the other side of that, I had two babies that I needed to stick around for. So, I just really didn't know what I was doing. And I was terrified. And my husband, he's a smart man. So he recognized that I was spiraling. And he met me at the door and he said, "You have two choices. You either go get help today or I'm putting you in a hospital." And by now I was so terrified that I finally put up the white flag and I surrendered. I said,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
"Okay."
it couldn't be easy though. If you think about it, Columbine was so fresh, and everybody wanted to talk about it. Even MTV was talking about it at the time, And then you had all the eyewitness encounters and things like that. And,
Yep.
you start hearing these things, and they start triggering all those memories of what happened with your dad.
Oh
You
yeah.
may not go back to the exact moment, but you'll feel that same thing. Your body remembers all those kind of things, so
Oh
it makes
yeah.
sense.
And then on top of that, I had such empathy for the kids because I knew how it felt
Your
to
brother,
have your
watching your brother
world,
go through it all.
Oh
yeah, to
yeah.
have your world be ripped out in front of you, and you have the media that's all up in your grill, asking you dumb questions, and you're just still trying to process what your experience was. And so I was watching that thinking, oh my God, I know what that feels like. And I had so much empathy for those kids. And, even the adults that were dealing with all of that when it happened. So, it was not only that, of having all of these emotions come flying back at me, but it was also, yeah, I got reminded every day, and people always wanted to talk about it. And, I had so much empathy for the kids that it made me even more sad. And so when I finally made the appointment, I made an appointment with a physician initially. And I went, and he put me on antidepressants because that's what they do.
Hmm.
And then he handed me a business card of a trauma therapist. And I literally laughed at the man. And I said, I tried this 14 years ago and it didn't work. What makes you think it's going to work this time? And he said, you really don't have a choice. um,
He's right on that, wasn't
yeah.
he?
So I was like, there's a pattern here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did. I made an appointment with her and I sat down with her, and I knew in the first 3 minutes that it was different. She was asking me the questions that I had longed to hear, and it gave me a safe space. I felt safe with her. And because I felt safe with her, I was able to be vulnerable with her. And I was able to tell her everything I went through at 17 and what I was currently dealing with. And she sat and she listened to me intently. And then she looked at me and she said, Susan, everything you've gone through since you were 17 is normal because you have PTSD. And I was so confused because I thought, wait a minute, I didn't go to war. I'm not in the military. What are you talking about? And she said, no, she said, anyone who goes through any kind of trauma can experience PTSD. But what you need to know is that PTSD isn't something that just goes away. It's something you learn to manage.
Hmm.
And when she said that, I thought, oh my God, I'm not crazy. And I had so much hope in that moment. And I was so grateful in that moment. And I knew that I was going to be able to heal from the
For
trauma
real this time.
for real. Yes. And
Yeah.
that I finally found the adult, I finally found the person that was going to guide me and help me. And
Yeah.
I felt seen. I felt heard. I felt so grateful and full of hope in that.
Yeah, I can
And
believe it. You know, you had to feel relief because somebody finally understands what you've been dealing with, especially when you're going through those moments and things. You know, I remember when you originally told me the story, I had flashbacks as I've interviewed a Columbine survivor.
yeah,
Little I realized that 10 minutes into this interview, we're going to find out this person was in the library under the table with enough eye contact to see the guy eye to eye. And, you know, after he just shot somebody, you know, so like I was having flashbacks of that conversation. I was like, holy shit. And as soon as you said Columbine, that's the first thing I thought of, like, oh my God, because Heidi was the name of the girl that was the one that was telling us the story. And little I know when I got into the conversation that we were going to get to that deep in the conversation, I was like, I could feel it because I'm an empath too. And I didn't figure this out till later on, until I started doing more interviews and I met somebody that introduced the idea to me and I didn't even know what it was. So, like, I felt it the whole time. It's still not easy hearing that story, still,
yeah,
you know. So, man,
for sure.
so with all
Absolutely.
the school shootings that go on now, do you still kind of feel like the energy what the kids are dealing with now too? You know, since you are an empath.
Yeah, I do, but it used to be that I could not deal with it. Like it would send me into a spiral a bit
Yeah.
years ago. Sandy Hook did that to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I but I have done so much work now that I can kind of zoom out and not allow it to bring my trauma to the forefront. And I can see it for what it is, and I can be empathetic to the people that the experience is experiencing it. Um, but I don't spiral anymore.
Yeah.
And it's taken many, many years in order to do that, but and a lot of work.
Oh,
But
I believe it.
yeah, I mean, I met a couple recently, a couple of years ago. I met a couple whose daughter was a teacher in Texas, and um, when the shooting at the school down there,
Yeah. Hidalgo.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
she the daughter was in the high school, which is next to the elementary
Damn.
school, and so they saw my book, and it started a conversation. And I think for them it was because I told them my story. Um, and I told them kind of what just told you and how that affected me, and how important it is for her to get help, because she wasn't, and she had PTSD around it. That it was, she literally, I guess the feds came in a year later, and they were giving them some information about what to do and all of the safety precautions and all of that stuff, in the high school. And she walked out of the room because she couldn't handle it. She was like, I can't handle this. And then after that, she went home and she didn't want to get out of her pajamas for days. And so I just told her parents, I said, the best thing you can do is to encourage her to talk to a professional, but make sure that that professional understands the type of trauma that she is dealing with. Because we there's a lot of therapists that like want to drop, they just want to put us all in a big pool of trauma people, right? But
Yes.
different traumas are different. there are different journeys to those traumas, and there's different modalities. So, I was very lucky that it only took me two times to find the person that started me in this journey of healing. Sometimes it takes you 4 times, sometimes it takes you 5 times, but it's really, really important that, the key is what I talked about earlier, was being able to be vulnerable with that person. Because if you're not able to be vulnerable and really dive in and do the work, the healing doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
then
very
you
true
get
points.
frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think you had a really great point there when you said that it may take 1 or 2, 3 or 4. It depends. So, you have to find that person that fits well with how you feel you can talk to them. If you feel like you can't talk to this person, I don't think people advocate enough for that, where they
Right.
say like, "Hey, this just isn't working out." I think people worry too much about hurting feelings, is what you tend to hear a lot about. And a lot of these people already know. They know if they aren't your fit, that's okay. Just move on to the next one. This isn't a date. They know exactly
Right.
how this works. If it's not working out for you down the road and you feel like, okay, we're at a block point, our blockade has come, switch out to someone else. And it's
Yeah.
okay. You're not going to hurt their feelings. They know
No.
exactly how this game works. They got into this knowing that's how this works.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And most therapists will say, if it's not the right fit, they'll say, you know what, maybe this person will work for you. And I find that a lot when I do talk to therapists, and they do have, a lot of them have that mentality of, I
They
understand that,
understand that they're not
yeah, that,
right. They may not be right.
we
Yeah.
need to be able to connect on a whole different level. And I tell people all the time, sometimes it's really uncomfortable to hear it, but your therapist is the most intimate relationship that you have besides,
Mm-hmm.
a partner. And so you need to be able to be vulnerable with that person. And you need to have a safe space. You need to be able to trust that they are going to help you and guide you in the right way. And if they don't, then that's fine. Move on. I tell people all the time, like, you have every right to interview your therapist.
Mm-hmm. Very good
I
Interview
think
points.
I'm on my
them.
sixth. I think I'm on my sixth now so far. But
You,
I stuck with one for a long time because I was so afraid
yeah.
of hurting the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Told you.
Yeah. And people
I'm telling
just
you.
need to get over that and understand that it's almost like a business partnership as well. Like, not
That's exactly what it
not
is a business
everyone
partnership.
is a good connection, just like certain people aren't the right fit for a job. So, you just have to make sure that you're finding the right person. And she was great for me. I mean, initially, she knew I was a hot mess. Like, when I met her, she knew she had a lot of work to do with me. But she also knew that she couldn't throw the kitchen sink at me either. Like,
Hmm.
this was going to be like a one bite at a time kind of thing,
It's a process.
and
It's absolutely a process that must take place in order for it to actually be done correctly.
absolutely. And she, with taking one bite at a time, my first session with her, she was asking me, what is the one thing that you are struggling with right now, that if we are able to help you with it, that it will help other things. Like, so at the time I had told her, I'm not sleeping at night. And that if you don't sleep, it throws your
Throws
whole world off.
everything off.
Your nervous system is all kinds of out of whack. So if if it'll create being anxious all the time, and in the depression even harder.
Yeah,
And
yeah, my neurologist would always yell at me because I have horrible insomnia. And with my head injury, she would always be like, "That's the number one cause for depression. That's the
yeah,
number one cause for depression."
yeah, exactly. So it's really important that you get rest. And so that was the first thing we attacked. She said, okay, well, explain to me what happens to you when you get ready to go to bed. And what would happen is the minute it turned dark outside, my anxiety would start. I would get anxious. Just thinking about laying my head on the pillow would make me crazy. And so I just lay there and stare at the walls, just hoping that, something would happen and put me to sleep. And it didn't. And so she said, okay, well, what have you ever done journaling? And I kind of looked at her funny. I was like, what? I had never heard of it. I had never heard of the concept. I had no idea what she was talking about. And she said, well, people do it in different ways. Some people write, some people do art, and some people use music. So, what's your flavor? And I told her I write. And she said, great, take a pad of paper and a pen and put it by your bed. And before you go to bed, I want you to take everything that's swirling around in that head of yours and put it on the paper. And she says, Susan, it doesn't even have to make sense. Like, just put it on the paper. And I said, all right. And I was very skeptical. I was like, there is no way this is working. And the first night I did it, I got a couple of hours of sleep. And I thought, wait a minute. And
Immediate.
by the fourth day, I was sleeping like a baby. And I thought, wait, how is this? How did that work? Something so
So
easy to,
simple.
so easy, but had such a huge impact. So the week after I went, she said, how did it go? And I said, I've been sleeping for 4 days. And she said, great, keep doing it, keep going. And I was pretty lucky because she was a younger woman, and she was kind of ahead of her time a little bit. So she was really dipping her toes into modalities that weren't really being used a lot. Um, so I started getting into the tapping techniques, and utilizing
Tapping
that.
is amazing
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It is amazing
So
stuff.
she started with the tapping and the affirmations and changing the mindset. And then we got into some breath work. She taught me box breathing, which I teach to this day. And regulating your nervous system is key. It is key. It is key. And so, she just went along and we just figured out what kind of modalities. I tried different things because there's no one size fits all. Everybody is different. So we tried
Exactly.
different things, and I kept the things that worked for me and discarded the things that didn't. And I didn't get into like the big guns until way later. And she didn't do EMDR work at all. She sent me to another therapist who used the paddles with the electronic pulses.
Hmm.
But I mean, there's different ways of doing EMDR. That was just this woman's particular way of doing it. And that was incredible. And it did a lot for me. And again, through this whole process, I just realized how grateful I was through everything, that I was able to have tools in my tool belt that when things would come up, such as school shootings or even 9/11,
Hmm.
when 9/11 happened, I felt like I could have gone down this spirally thing. And some of the anxiety of just this insecurity of what was going on at the time, that but at the same time I had my tools, so I was able to regulate myself and I was able to stay as calm as possible, and I wasn't spiraling at the time.
Isn't it amazing when you start getting when you start getting those tools in your bag, the power that it gives you?
Oh, yeah.
Like it's an immediate, it's like what you said with the journaling, immediately it started working. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Something so simple, or with tapping, just doing the different tapping on your different, like it is a miracle how much it helps when you just bring out that tool belt. When you get those tools on there, it just changes the trajectory of everything. At least it
Yeah.
has for me.
Well, it
And I'm
does.
still in
It
it.
gives you power. It gives you power back over your life. And because I was able to do that, I was able to forgive the men that took my dad. Um,
That's a big step there.
and it was huge. But I look at forgiveness a little bit differently. Um, there's a myth around it. They think, people think that if you forgive someone, you're forgetting what they did. And that's not it for me personally. For me personally, I looked at it as I'm getting my power back. I'm no longer giving you the power over me. I am no longer allowing you to hurt me. And, and so I'm going to be able to heal from this and have the life that I want. And you're not going to have a hold on me anymore. You're not going to live rent free in my head anymore. And that was another huge step in my healing. Just teaching me what it means to forgive someone who has hurt you.
We did not get, for our listeners, we did not get the name of your book. And I have listeners that I know for a fact that have been through school shootings themselves. I have people that I know personally in my life, and listeners that have been through a lot of um, very similar situations, not quite, but regardless, very similar. What is the name of your book, and where can it be found?
Sure. The book's name is The Other Side of the Gun: My Journey from Trauma to Resiliency. And it is on Amazon. It is paperback. It is on Kindle. So if you're on Kindle Unlimited, you can read my book for free. Um, and then I did go into a studio and I narrated my own book in an audio form. So it is on Audible as well.
That's what I have to have. Good. I'm glad to hear that.
It's funny to hear when people do their own book. They're like, I read my own book. I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome, because I have a friend that's what she does too. She reads books like that for people. She'll narrate them and things. And I'm just like, and she has a very like British like accent, so I make fun of her all the time about it. I'm like, oh, it has to sound very interesting the way you do it, mate. And she just starts laughing at me every time. I'm just like, but that's so cool though that you went and read your own book and you did the audio version of it too. Because like she said, that's better for her. It's better for me too. I some books I can read, some books I have to listen to. I don't have the attention span to do it sometimes. It just depends. But I'm always doing something, so it's really nothing new to me.
Yeah, when I first wrote the book, there were a lot of people like initially I knew I wanted to do an Audible, but initially I was like, I'm just going to hire an actress who can read it for me. But the more people that read the book were like, oh no, you don't. You need to narrate your own book. This is your life. This is your story, and it needs to be in your voice.
And
And
in all honesty, I find that even more interesting because it's you telling your own story,
yeah,
you know?
and I will tell you that that was an incredible experience for me personally, just because I was very emotional after I finished. My engineer didn't know what to do with me, but the reason I was emotional was because writing it and going through the editing and rewriting it and rereading it and all of that is so different from hearing your own voice tell the story. And I put myself in the shoes of my readers. and the journey that I take them on. And
Yeah.
it was overwhelming. It was such a different experience for me. And it made me even more grateful to be able to do that, because I feel like with the Audible, there are people that don't read, or maybe they're blind, and they need to hear this. They need to hear this message of
They
hope and
do.
healing, and I wanted to make it so that everyone um, can experience the book.
I think it was a good move reading it yourself because the emotion you put into it too, because it's your story as you're reading it. I remember when we first met, I was tearing up a little bit. Nobody could tell. There's only two times in the show I've ever cried. Okay, one was with you, and then the second time was with another person, and it was just so hard to listen to it. And
I
it's just
know.
like you can't change it. Like if you're reading it versus the person that's actually wrote this book is reading it to you, it's a whole nother story because you get that emotion, even though you're not in the same room as this
Yeah,
person. You can still hear it in your voice and the way you're reading it, and the feelings come through. And me being an empath, I can understand that completely because you could feel it coming through, and it
yeah.
just still washes over you. So I mean, hats off for you for doing it though, because I
It was
think that
hard.
that's oh, I bet it was.
It
Trust
was
me, I remember we
technically
first talked
hard.
about it. It was God.
Yeah, because being on a stage and speaking, and being on a podcast and speaking, I can put more emphasis on my speak. When you are reading something, you have to keep a cadence. And so I had to keep a cadence, and like knowing when to breathe, when to not breathe, and I mean, there were times where I was reading and I was like holding my breath, and the engineer's like, breathe, and I'm just like, oh my God. Um,
She's like, this
yeah,
is too much for me. Forget
yeah,
this.
it was a
Whatever.
lot. It was a lot. I mean, I did learn a lot in the process, but uh, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to you can't fluctuate your voice that much. It has to be a cadence, because she said I'd lose my readers if it was like that. So, a lot of it is in the editing. God love her, because she knew I was green. She was like, alrighty then, so it took me 2.5 weeks
So
to be
you
in the
didn't add
studio.
that to your list at the beginning of it as now a professional Audible reader.
Just for
Right?
myself, just for myself. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I enjoyed myself. It was a learning experience, and it was, I even it brought back, even though, like I said, reading it and writing it and all that stuff, it still brought back like physical memories of what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm very detailed, and so not over the top detailed, but enough to get you to understand it, to understand how I felt and what it looked like at the time. And so um in that, I was able to feel those feelings. I was able to have those memories, and remember the certain scenario I talked about, um, and kind of giggle, and like talk over with my engineer, and just have a laugh over certain things. Or she'd even make comments like, oh really? It's just like, wait, you're throwing me off. It's like, so yeah, it was great to do it, and I was just really glad that I was able to put that out, and that more people will be able to um, hear my book. And
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can connect with more
Definitely.
people on a deeper level too. 'Cause like I said,
mhm,
it's more intimate setting because
yeah,
when you're listening to things in your ears, it's different. You don't hear the outside world. You're like these. I can't hear hardly anything around me. So like whenever you're talking, I'm laser focused on what you're saying. And I don't hear anybody else around me. So it'll be the same setting though. Honestly.
yeah, for sure. So I hope everybody, enjoys my book. It's not an easy, obviously, it's not an easy story. But I really want people to walk away with seeing the resiliency and seeing the healing and seeing the hope, seeing that there is hope, that they're not alone. Um, and
That's where it's at,
that
right?
is the main message that I put out, is that they're not alone and that there is hope and you can heal from whatever it is that you've gone through. But you need to, there's some things that you need to do, which is finding your safe space, finding the person that can help you in that way, diving in and being vulnerable and doing the work. And that's the only way I've gotten to be where I'm at now. And I'm ever evolving, trust me.
Aren't we
Just because
all?
I wrote a book doesn't mean it's over. So, always evolving and learning um, and it's a good thing to keep growing and keep learning and being honest.
It absolutely is, and I just got to say thank you for being brave enough to actually write that and go through it, relive, because I know you had to relive and relive and relive every time you had to edit and every time you had to, do, and
Four
there's
and a half
so many.
years.
Yeah, so how many?
4.5 years.
Yeah, 4.5 years of reliving on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
Even with the tools in your bag, that's
Yeah.
rough. That's very rough, and
Oh, yeah.
it's something to contend with. But the fact that you wanted to get that hope out there and you wanted people to understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel, there's work that is involved, but it is there. And that right there, just I love that. I can't get enough of stories of there is light at the end of your tunnel, there's hope. Yes, I've been through hell and back, but guess what, I made it back.
Yep. Yeah.
That is.
And that's my whole purpose. That's what happened. I wrote my book, and through my book I found my purpose. So I,
Oh, PTSD growth. I
yeah,
just learned that one.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's and as many people as I can talk to, and as many people I can put this message out to, I am so grateful for podcasters such as yourself, is allowing me to be on your show and being able to connect with your audiences. Um, and I'm just always grateful for the opportunity.
I am grateful, and I know Giselle will be grateful. I know Pete's grateful for you actually doing this. Absolutely.
Most
Thank you
definitely.
so much. Thank you so much. Pete, did you have any more?
Nope, you're good to go.
All right. All right, everybody. We thank you for looking in through the glass with us one more time. Make sure that you get that Audible, get that book, and check out Susan Snow's story. And thank you for listening, you guys.
See ya.
Till next time.
Adios.